Welcome back to Never Enough Novels. As you may know, I'm primarily a romance reader, so I'm excited to share a list of my all-time favorite contemporary romance authors, and I'm going to let you know which of their books is my absolute favorite. I've included both mainstream, more popular authors, as well as a few possibly lesser-known ones, so I'm hoping that you'll find at least one or two authors that are new to you from this video. And all of them have fairly extensive backlists, so if you find a new author that you like, you'll be able to read plenty of their books in the future. I added links to all the books that I specifically recommend down below, so if you're interested as well, you can grab them from Amazon and help support this channel. Also, please like and subscribe to see more book recommendations in the future. I'm kicking off the list with Sarah Adams. She writes the most charming and adorable small-town romances I've ever read. At this point, she has a fairly significant backlist, and every single one of her books is phenomenal. Most do take place in small towns, so if you're a fan of that trope, you will love these books. They're also generally loosely connected to each other, whether it's like a duology or a trilogy. So you'll find those books that are grouped together, like take place in the same small town or have connected characters. She generally includes a little bit of spice in her book, so you'll find a few scenes throughout, but it's definitely not the focus. And if you're not interested in that aspect, you can easily skip over those scenes or those chapters. The book I'm going to recommend by Sarah Adams is The Cheat Sheet. Our main characters are Bree and Nathan, and they live insanely different lives. Nathan is the quarterback of the NFL team, and Bree is just struggling to make ends meet as the owner of a dance studio. But their friendship is rock solid and has been going on for decades. At least, except for the tiny fact that they're hiding from each other, that they're head over heels in love with each other. Neither is willing to admit this, though, because they're both worried about risking this friendship that they've built. However, when a publicity opportunity arises, they agree to fake date, and they both kind of think this might be the opportunity to express how they truly feel. I love Nathan and Bree as characters on their own, but Nathan's teammates are an absolute hoot. They essentially come up with a plan or a cheat sheet and a series of steps that Nathan needs to follow in order to show Bree how he really feels about her. And that whole scene where they're brainstorming what these ideas should be was just hilarious. Overall, this is just a really fun sports romance. The next author I'm going to recommend is Ali Hazelwood. If you're looking for strong female characters, these are called STEMinist romance novels because the main characters always work in some form of STEM. Ali Hazelwood is going to be your go-to author. Her novels feature women that are battling to hold their own in the world of science, and they also show that they are flawed as well. So her characters are by no means perfect, but they are just extremely real. I love how as an author, she doesn't shy away from detailed scientific explanations or going into the depths of what their roles and responsibilities are in their jobs. She also does a fantastic job showing the very real difficulties of being a woman in STEM without being too preachy or making it like the main focus of the novel. It's simply the reality of the situation they're in, and each of her women deal with it in different ways. The first STEMinist novel is still my favorite, and that is The Love Hypothesis. It's perfect for fans of that enemies to lovers relationship trope. In the beginning of the novel, Olive ends up kissing the first man she sees in order to appease her best friend and sets off a series of events that she never expected. The guy is a well-known jerk, but now she's become sort of entangled in him and forced to interact with him over and over again. And a sexy scientific romp ensues, which plays out oh so well on these pages. Ali generally does not shy away from spice, so you'll definitely find a few sexy scenes in each of her novels. The next author I love seems to fly under the radar a little bit, so I'm excited to share her with you if you haven't heard of her before. That's Melissa Ferguson. If you love standalone romances, she'll be your go-to author. She has written a variety of contemporary romance novels, and they all feel very different from one another. The one I'm going to recommend today is Meet Me in the Margins. This is a slow burn romance, and it's a situation where you're not entirely sure which guy you're rooting for the whole time. Plus, this is the epitome of a book about books. The main character, Claire, works at a stodgy, old-school publishing house where nonfiction and literary fiction are the only books worth reading. But, in secret, she is working on her own romance manuscript. After this mishap forces her to hide the pages of her manuscript in this secret room that she thinks only she knows about, she goes back later to pick them up and discovers some mysterious editor has left notes all over the pages of her draft. And this begins this back and forth exchange as they leave notes for each other that becomes more and more personal as time goes on, but continues to be super mysterious because she has no idea who's on the other end of those notes, and the person has no idea who is writing this manuscript. I read this book so fast because I was eager to find out what happened. It kept me enchanted and delighted the whole way through. Next up is an all-time favorite of mine, and that is Jenny Colgan. I have been a fan of hers for decades now. Jenny might have more books to her name than any other author on this list. She is a very low-spice romance author, so she's perfect if you're looking for all the romance and sweet feelings without any of the sexy scenes. And I've loved pretty much everything that she's written back to the very beginning, so you can't go wrong picking up any of the books on her list. Also, generally her books are written in series and they are very distinctly ordered, so you always want to start at the beginning and then continue on in the series, which is kind of nice because you get to meet these characters and fall in love with them and then see them throughout different seasons of their life. I also love how typically there will be one book and then the next book will be Christmas at this place or another holiday. So she kind of weaves in different holidays or big moments so that you get to follow these characters along even as much as you want. If you want to see her full catalog of books, I'm going to put the link down below to the blog post that I wrote that has all of her books in order, so you can ensure you're picking up the first book in the series and then know where to go from there. The book I'm recommending today is The Christmas Bookshop because, of course, I had to include at least one holiday romance on this list. Carmen is not looking forward to spending the holidays with her oh-so-perfect sister and her little family. Unfortunately, she's out of a job and has no other options. To bring in some much-needed cash, Carmen agrees to help out one of her sister's clients. So she begins the job of attempting to revamp this really old, dusty, outdated bookshop. But after a famous author takes an interest in this bookshop as well, Carmen starts to realize there might be different avenues for her to get her life back on track. This was everything you would want from a holiday romance, really charming, full of holiday spirit, and kind of had two dual love interests, which kept things interesting. Next up is Abby Jimenez. Now, I've been a fan of Abby since her very first book, which was The Friend Zone, but it's been really neat over the past couple of years to see her get more and more attention and watch as her books have grown into instant bestsellers. Did you know also that Abby is the owner of a bakery called Nadia's Cupcakes, and she's been a Food Network winner before as well? I keep waiting for her to include a baker as one of her characters and just find it so funny that she hasn't yet. But I do notice that she gives little nods to Nadia's Cupcakes throughout the books, like her characters might order from Nadia's Cupcakes or something. And I think that's such a cute way to include her small business in her writing. The book I recommend that still is one of my all-time favorites of hers is Part of Your World. It's a classic trope of characters from two very different worlds trying to make a relationship work. Alexis only knows the high-pressure, high-status life that her family has dictated for her. So she's completely taken off guard by how much she's into Daniel and the small-town life that he lives after she stumbles upon them one evening. What starts off as merely a fling turns into a far deeper connection between the two of them. But there's no way their worlds can combine. I completely fell in love with these characters and the insane electricity between them. The progression of their relationship just felt so natural. Plus, Abby transforms a simple romance novel into a book that touches on harder topics like physical and emotional abuse, what chances are worth taking, or how to live a simpler life. It had so much depth, and it was really unique in the fact that these two characters obviously loved each other and had this incredible connection. They just had to figure out how to make an impossible situation work for them in a way that they were both comfortable with. Overall, a fantastic romance novel that just goes beyond kind of the adorable fluff and definitely hits you harder. The last author I'm going to recommend today is Helena Hunting, and she has a ton of books to her name, and she's probably most well known for her hockey romances. They are generally super steamy and full of delicious characters and the women who love them. But she also has a much less spicy, just general contemporary romance trilogy that was actually my first introduction to her. I'll admit that Friends to Lovers is my favorite trope, so it's no surprise that When Sparks Fly is my favorite book that I'm going to recommend. This is the first book in that contemporary romance trilogy that I mentioned, and each of the three books features a different sister. So these three sisters are working together currently to run Sparks House, which is like an event hotel, and they each have different roles, different love lives. So When Sparks butterflies the first book, and it has that friends to lovers trope that I love so much. Avery is the classic, devotes all of her time to running this business with her sisters and has no time for a man. She'd rather hang out with her guy friends, including her roommate Declan, anyway. But an accident occurs that forces Avery to rely on Declan in ways that she never has before. And taking care of Avery brings up feelings in Declan that he has been pushing down for years. If they give in to this spark, they might ruin everything that they've built over the years. This was a fresh and realistic take on making the jump from friends into something more. I identified with their reluctance and then the fragility of their new relationship. I also really appreciated within the book the time that they took to improving themselves and dealing with their issues individually. It is one I highly recommend for all romance readers, and honestly, the whole series is fantastic. So if you love this first one, I promise you will love the rest of her books as well. And if you're a hockey romance fan, definitely give some of her hockey romances a try. I actually just got the book Pucked in the mail, which they are re-releasing with a new cover that has like sprayed edges, which I think are just so cool. And that's the first book in a hockey romance series, so I think that would be a great recommendation also. Let me know in the comments which contemporary romance author is your favorite if it wasn't already on this list. And if you want to see more book recommendations, check out my favorite books of 2024 so far.